Hello. So today I am 21 weeks, and it has been quite the week since we turned 20 weeks. Just wanted to share a little bit of an update because there's a lot, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out there dealing with some similar things. And I went into panic mode and didn't have a lot of resources. So wanted to just kind of share what we've had going on over the last week and a little bit about symptoms and things that I've got happening at 20 weeks pregnant with triplets. So it all started on Tuesday. We were called and told, or we got an email that my son's preschool had a couple of positive COVID tests. And it started out in the infant classroom. Two of those teachers, and one of the infants, I think at that time, had tested positive. The infant might not have yet. And so we were told we needed to pick up our kiddos and that they'd be closed for the next 10 days out of precaution. So Wednesday hit, we had our son home, and then around 2 o'clock, we had, granted, our MFM 20-week anatomy scan scheduled for that Wednesday afternoon. And um, I'm shaking at 2 o'clock, just not knowing what to do. I didn't know if my son was going to get COVID. I didn't know. I'm sorry. So taking a step back, we got a call at around 2 that more teachers and students had been testing positive. Garrett's two teachers and one other classmate. So on Wednesday, I knew, okay, we've had some potential exposure. What do I do? I called our doctor's office. Didn't really get to anybody to talk to, but thankfully I have an amazing nurse practitioner friend that I actually met through my IVF clinic. She did our physicals to get our medications prescribed, or my medications prescribed. And then we actually reconnected on one of our local Resolve group pages. I had asked a question and she chimed in, and then we started Facebook messaging. So now she's one of my really great resources, and she's also pregnant, and we talk quite a bit. So I sent her a message. I knew she worked at the clinic that I was about to go to, or the OB office, and I asked her, what do I do? I was like, I'm pretty frantic. The CDC doesn't really give me much insight. Am I at risk? Like, what's going on? Am I allowed to come into the office? So she said, since Garrett had not tested positive yet, didn't have any symptoms, that we were technically okay. It was kind of a second level of exposure, and that we were still fine to go in for the appointment. So we went in, had the 20-week ultrasound, anatomy screen. The tech was incredible. She got through three babies in an hour. Spent about 20 minutes on each one. We got to see all of their bits and pieces, confirmed the genders. We are, in fact, having two boys and a girl. She started with A. They were all kind of stacked like a sandwich. So A was on the bottom and was rumped ahead with B. So B was actually sticking his butt on A's face, and we got a pretty hilarious ultrasound picture with baby butt and baby face. So they were obviously already starting to wrestle around like they probably will do when they're outside of the womb. So we got all the parts for A. Couldn't quite see his aorta. I think that was the only thing that was missing from her list. But we have a fetal echocardiogram scheduled, so she wasn't too worried about that. I believe A was 13 ounces. And then we moved to B. B was doing just fine, getting sat on in there, pretty squished together. Same thing. All of his parts were looking really great. Got to see faces and just little hands and feet. It was just really, really fun. And B is 11 ounces. And then C, which is baby girl, was in the fetal position. Granted, she's a fetus. That makes sense. But she was really tucked in, so we couldn't see. Her face was pointed down. So we threatened for me to get up to go to the bathroom just to kind of move her around, and all of a sudden she flipped over. So she was just not cooperating for the first few minutes. Um, but got everything really great on her too. And she's 13 ounces. So A and C were 13 ounces. B was a little bit behind, not in any bad way, but just was 11 ounces. I'm kind of grateful that they're not all super huge. Um, but yeah, so the anatomy scan portion was great. Always fun to see those pictures and just to make sure that the babies are growing really well. Then we went in and sat down and had our normal conversation with our MFM, or maternal fetal medicine doctor. Hadn't seen him in a little bit. My last two, I think. No, my last appointment was with another doctor. They kind of rotate. Um, so it was nice to see him again, really enjoy his energy, and he's just kind of loud and crazy like we are. So it's nice, matches our energy. And I was just really honest and I said, my son has been exposed to COVID. What do I do if I get COVID? And I'm really glad I asked. He said, you do what everybody else does. If you get COVID, you stay home, lay in bed because you're going to feel miserable. And if you can't breathe or you have any issues, you go to the emergency room. The part that kind of freaked me out a little bit, but of course made me feel safe too, was, he said to go to the hospital where we'll be delivering, which is like a larger hospital downtown, maybe 20 minutes away. It's not super far, but we've got a hospital 5 minutes up the street. So he said, go there in case you do need to go to labor and delivery. And just hearing that and being 20 weeks just freaked me out, because I don't want to deliver these babies early. I want them to cook and be fine. But knowing that he said, you're going to be okay. It's not, the end of the world if you get COVID, and people have had it before and had perfectly fine babies. So that really calmed my nerves, because little did I know, 2 days later, Garrett would test positive. Um, so we came home, had normal kind of dinner interactions. My mom was watching him. She had just gotten her vaccine on Monday. We thought maybe he had low exposure anyway. It would be safe for her to be around him. And then Thursday, Grant and I both had really busy work days. So she volunteered to take him for the majority of the day. Again, no symptoms. He was totally fine. But then I picked him up around 3 o'clock just to give her a break. And he did some, tablet time while I was working and finishing out my day. Still nothing, no news from school. Then Friday hit. So Friday morning, I get a text from Garrett's little buddy who lives in the neighborhood, and they, go to school together. And he had a fever, and they were taking him in to get a COVID test. And then, just an hour later, found out that he had tested positive. And at that point, I knew. I said, if he's gotten it, Garrett's going to get it. So yep, right on, right on time, around 1 o'clock, right after lunch. Garrett had a fever of 101.4. And I just knew, there's 99% chance that a fever is going to be COVID when you're in that kind of exposure space. And we found out that 8 of his classmates and 2 of his teachers tested positive. I don't know if we found that out that morning or if that was Wednesday. But I just was sure. I just knew that's exactly what was going on. So called and made a pediatrician appointment to do a drive-through COVID test. Then actually scheduled them for myself and for Grant right afterwards at an urgent care facility, because I figured if we're going to test him, let's just all get tested. So I had a 10 o'clock call right after I got in the text, and it was with my team, and I just lost it. I was just, I told them what was going on, and, I'm visibly crying on my call. We use our cameras for every call, so it was hard to kind of avoid it, and just said, all right, I need a minute. This has been a challenging morning. And they were all just so amazing. And then I got through that phone call and another 2, and just signed off for the day, and just knew I needed to kind of focus on getting him tested, getting us tested, and kind of figuring out a plan of what we were going to do. So around 3:45, we all got in the van, popped Paw Patrol on so that he'd be a little bit distracted, give him some juice. I did end up putting a pull-up on him just because, when you're sick, sometimes an accident can happen, and that was the last thing we needed to deal with, was an accident during nap time. So he slept for a couple hours, and we got him up for his appointment. Did his COVID test. Poor kid had to have 2 done because we needed to do a rapid and a PCR, the one that's a little bit more detailed. And immediately, the 5-10 minute mark, they called us and said, yep, he was positive. And so we drove over to the urgent care place really close. Unfortunately, Garrett needed to use the bathroom, and when you have a COVID positive kid, you're just going to let him go. So very glad I put him in a pull-up. But he was distracted by Paw Patrol and was, in a pretty good mood. Really just had the fever and a little stuffy, but I wouldn't even have said it was congestion if we didn't know he was already going through the exposure. So we go over to the urgent care clinic. We went in one at a time since one of us needed to stay in the car with Garrett. I went first. they were like, "Why are you here?" Blah, blah, blah. And I was like, "Well, my child just tested positive." They're like, "Well, you don't have any symptoms." And I said, "Well, this is my symptom. I'm 20 weeks pregnant with triplets. Just need to be sure." So I too had to do two tests, the rapid and then the PCR, and then switched places. Grant came in and did his. And then 20 minutes later, got the call, and our tests were negative. So we knew there still was a chance that the PCR could come back positive, but having two negative rapid tests and then Garrett's being positive did make me feel a little bit better. In the meantime, I had posted to Triplet Mom Facebook group and just asked, anybody dealt with COVID while pregnant? Can you share a little bit about what you had going on? I just need some to feel a little bit better. And so got 5 moms that wrote back, and they all said, "Yep, I had it, totally fine." You know, I didn't even one of them had delivered their babies pretty successfully since then. So that made me feel better to not have any horror stories as opposed to what I was reading on Google, which just don't Google. It's just the worst idea. But we knew I needed to isolate. So as soon as we got home, I went straight to our guest room, started getting all settled in. And that's where I've spent the last 5 days. So Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Monday, I isolated in our guest room. I did not use our shared hall bathroom that Garrett uses. I used our master bathroom every time I needed to go and shower and things like that. Knew I needed to isolate from Garrett, but also wanted to kind of keep a little barrier between Grant and I too, just in case he got it pretty quickly. And then ate all my meals in the room. I've jokingly called it I was princessing, in my tower. Grant's been amazing. He's really done all the caregiving for Garrett, making all of our meals. And it is what it is. I mean, we're very lucky. No symptoms. Garrett's fever went away by Saturday. No other symptoms. If nothing else, COVID has made him like the Hulk. He's even more energetic and crazy, which is challenging with two parents that work full time and one that can't take care of them. So, I mean, I work in my basement down here and have been able to stay pretty far away. Thankfully, there's a couch and a TV down here, and I can kind of isolate a bit. Obviously, a calculator for doing work. Um, just being able to kind of have a little bit of a space that's different than a really small guest room. But it's mentally hard. I mean, for the first couple of days, I told Garrett I can't hug you, can't be within 6 feet. Like the length of a horse. Trying to explain what 6 feet is to a 5-year-old is hard too. The weekend was the hardest part, and I just watched a ton of trashy TV. I watched Netflix and, tried to binge watch as much as I could to keep my mind off of the scariness of having the COVID bomb in our house and just waiting for it to go off. But then when Monday hit, I was like, okay, this is day 4. If, Garrett got his symptoms around day 5 of being exposed, and if we're not really feeling bad, maybe we're doing a little bit better. I mean, we're still isolating, nothing's changed there. But my mental state's a little bit better. Just kind of being a little bit more hopeful that, we may be in the clear. Um, Again, I'm still isolating. We did sit outside and have dinner together, but I put him at his little picnic table, definitely more than 6 feet away, and just tried to have a little bit of normalcy. He's definitely feeling the effects. He's of the separation, not of COVID. Dude, you'd never know that that kid had COVID. He's just so overly normal. But I can tell that he's just really missing me and the hugs and just the time and just being able to hang out. But I mean, he gets his dad full time, which is pretty cool too, to be able to have that kind of bonding time. I'm sure Grant wouldn't say it's a positive right now, but certainly being able to at least have one parent help and he's not completely on his own or with somebody else, I think has been good for him. So, today is day 5. Is it Tuesday? No, it's Wednesday. I think it's day 5, maybe day 6. And actually this morning I was able to get a appointment for COVID vaccine from a local Rite Aid. So I got myself on the list 6 days from now. So I'll be out of isolation really close to Garrett being done with quarantine. So we think it's a really good decision to get the vaccine. I know there's a lot of feedback, both sides of why it's good, why it's bad. And I've just decided it's right for me. That anxiety that I felt on Friday, knowing that there was COVID in my house, knowing that I am a huge at risk pregnant woman, I'm not huge, but the risk being big, I am huge. Um, but just, I don't want to have to deal with that anxiety again. And, every time Grant goes to the grocery store, is he bringing it back? And for my mental health and just the safety of these babies, we decided it's a good idea to go ahead and get it. So I'll be excited to share how that goes. There's a really great Facebook group in our area called RVA Vaccine or Vaccination Hunters, and they're posting daily like who has vaccines, who's opening up to outside of the 65 age range, because that's been the problem, is that it's only been 65 and up, and not people with pre-existing health conditions. So I've been looking every day to figure out how I can get the vaccine and how to keep us protected. So I'm just really excited to have that on the calendar and to be moving forward. I mean, this is just terrifying for anybody that's having to deal with it. I mean, I can't imagine if we all had COVID, and navigating it. I guess the only pro is that once you have it, you've got some immunity built up. Um, so, part of me was almost like, all right, let's just be a family, not isolate, and just we'll get through this together. And then I just pictured us both, Grant and I, being sick and having to manage that with a little kid too. And I think we made the right decision. I think this is going to be the most healthy way to do it. There's less risk. You never know. It could be that one person that is not going to respond well to COVID and be intubated. So those things go through my head all the time. So feeling a lot better. I guess 20-week symptoms. The pelvic pain, round ligament pain, back pain, anything else that could hurt from carrying this bowling ball is pretty in charge and large. I have started sitting on a wedge pillow. I think I posted it maybe in my last video, and I probably repeated some stuff this time, but I'm not a YouTuber. But this is the wedge pillow that actually one of my favorite Instagram friends, we're real life friends now, just haven't met, actually bought. It's called a Hiccapop, and it's a little wedge that you can sleep with it under your bump or sit with it under your butt, but one side's a little firmer than the other. So it's really cool to be able to kind of keep your hips up. And then I also sit with a pillow in the chair while I'm up, show the bump. Um, so pretty big. I know it's kind of hard to tell wearing black, but they're definitely in there. So baby A is down on the bottom, and then B is kind of in the middle, and then C is right up on top. Uh, and last night they decided to have like a kickboxing competition. They were very, very active, and I would say it's like 10:30. They just all were moving, and I just kept picturing the little feet kicking in there. I would say that's the best symptom right now. Is just feeling them move all the time, and if I eat something sweet or drink a glass of lemonade, man, they go crazy. Um, making sure I'm eating what I need to eat. Actually, started sharing on Instagram a picture of all my meals while I was in isolation, just to be silly. But I got a lot of messages about how people enjoyed it, so I kept doing it. So if you're not following on the Instagram page, definitely hop over. It's at Garber Party of Six too, or at Party of, gosh, at Garber Party of Six as well as the name of this channel. So I share kind of just the silly day in the life stuff, and I'm not mocking influencers, but it's just kind of funny. I like post a picture of like a frozen Jimmy Dean breakfast sandwich like an influencer would, with like their major meals that they put together and things like that. So it's silly. But it keeps me entertained. I, have some really cool relationships with the ladies and on that page, and we have a group just for people that are having babies in July, which was my original due date. So it's just really fun to be able to interact with people, especially in the time of COVID when I can't see real friends as much. And these women are all going through what I'm going through at the same time with one baby, but um, it's still nice to be able to kind of talk and figure out, hey, is this normal? Is this not normal? A lot of times we're talking about body parts and things that are just sometimes inappropriate, but it's funny. But yeah, this video is a little bit longer than I expected, and again, it might have a little bit of repeat from what I shared in my 20-week update. But really just sharing what it's like to have a family member with COVID while you're pregnant. It's a challenge, man. I'm just really excited to have this past us, to get fully vaccinated and going into the spring, just feeling a little bit safer, is really what I'm looking forward to the most. Um, and getting baby stuff and the registry and all that kind of things are still to be looking forward to. But for now, it's just been, how do we survive? How do we survive right now, in all this craziness? So thanks for joining me, to talk a little bit today. Hopefully people are enjoying these videos. A couple people are watching them. Again, I just put them out there for anybody down the road that's going through something similar, because I have loved following so many of the triplet moms that are out here, and it just breaks things down and makes it easier, and you're not alone, and it's not as scary. So hopefully it's good. Check back in. Next week might not be too exciting, but I may share, after I get my vaccine. So I guess that really is next week, and just share a little bit more about how we're doing and how things are going. So thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys soon. Bye.